Today we're going to begin this build by applying some aquarium safe silicone to the back of this tank. As you can see, I already applied it and let it dry for a good bit and have it prepped for the next part, which is the spray foam. Now the purpose for the silicone is for the spray foam can have something to stick onto versus the very slippery surface of the glass. Next, we are going to apply the spray foam atop the dry silicone. I prefer using the black spray foam because not only is it pet and animal friendly, but it helps give that natural rock and cliffside look. Now that you have it all covered up, you're going to want to let it sit for at least an hour and give it a chance to dry and expand. With the foam fully dry, we will begin cutting and shaping the background. This is the end result. You can shape it any way or form you'd like, but I wanted to go with more of a rock wall look. Next we will be applying more silicone, but this time on top of the spray foam. You're going to want to add a generous amount of silicone and spread it around using a glove. We're going to want to completely cover the top surface of the spray foam with this black silicone. Now unfortunately it does release some pretty strong fumes, so I'm going to go ahead and take this outside and finish spreading it, and once I do, I will show you what it looks like. Once it's all nice and covered, you're ready for the next step. Now while the silicone is still wet, we're going to add a large portion of dry coconut husk, completely covering the silicone and patting it down so it gets a nice firm hold on the substrate. Now whether you decide to use coconut husk or plain dirt, it is very important that it is completely dry. If it is wet or damp, it will not stick, so be careful of that. I know some people like to put their coconut husk brick inside a tub of water and then just letting it expand and then dry in the sun. I just take it outside and beat it with a hammer until I get a nice portion of coconut husk bits and pieces. I recommend letting it dry for at least 2 days, and after you dump out any excess substrate that didn't stick, you're left with something that looks like this. Bigger clumps and pieces were easier to dump out, but for the finer bits of dirt and dust, I just sucked them out using a vacuum cleaner. For my primary land mass, I will be using this pre-built base made out of large filter mesh, spray foam, and medium-sized decorative aquarium rocks. All hail the mighty spray foam, not only helpful in making decorations, but also helping putting things together. Let's just get this out of the way real quick. And I will be setting it in sort of a sideways position. Now to squeeze it in and put it in a good spot. It's a bit of a tight fit, but it sits in there exactly how I want it to. Time to fill in the open area we have in the back. And for that, I will be using smooth river rocks. I will not be using any dirt or bioactive soil for this build, so I need a nice tall layer of rocks. After carefully dropping them in, this is what I was left with. I recommend filling it up about halfway. Now, one thing I did notice when I was placing in the rocks was that it was pushing my base out a bit. So in order to keep it from moving, I'm going to go ahead and glue it down to the actual glass. That should help it from sliding or moving around when I add the second layer of rocks. Now with everything holding firm in its place, it's time to add the second layer. For that, we will be using some black aquarium gravel. Be sure to completely cover the first layer of rock. Push it in until it becomes a nice firm layer of compressed gravel. As you can see, the gravel has a habit of spreading everywhere. Any extra gravel that fell outside on the wrong side of the tank, I just went ahead and picked up with the spoon and compressed it back into where it's supposed to be. So I glued a few rocks in the corner where I didn't want them spilling out of. And don't worry if you didn't pick up every single little rock. They will be covered up when we add the last layer to our tank. Now we will be covering up the ugly mesh using some black lava rock. We will be stacking them together one at a time and gluing them down with some hot glue until we have a nice wall of lava rock covering up the mesh. Until you have something that looks sort of like this. I decided to only build it up about halfway, but it's up to you how tall or how short you want to build the wall. I like to add a few loose ones on the bottom to make it look like it naturally formed on its own. With all that said and done, it is time for my favorite part of the build, which would be the decorating. Here I have an assortment of different decorations. I have some corkwood, plastic plants, and some frog moss. This is your build, so feel free to add the decorations any place you feel they look best. Frog moss and cork don't rot, so they do really well in wet environments. With the decorations placed and set, it is time to add the final layer to our tank, which is the sand. I like using play sand for my builds because not only is it cheap and non-clumping, but it has a finer grain and more natural looking. However, it is very important that you wash it before use. Otherwise, we will have white murky water, and we do not want that. Time to carefully pour in the water. First, I will be adding 1 gallon of drinking water. Followed by 1 gallon of tap water. Drinking water usually has minerals and additives for taste, so I use the tap water to kind of dilute it down a bit. But even still, I recommend waiting 24 hours before the water is ready for use. I apologize for forgetting to record the next part, but as you can see, I added a small water filter and covered it up with a rock and another bit of decoration. It also helps ease down the current of the pump, so that way it's not tossing sand and debris everywhere. Now to add the neighbors and cleaning crew that will be living in this environment. We will be adding some neon tetras and a freshwater snail. fish are more for a nice aesthetic look, but the snail will help maintain the glass and rocks clean from any algae that may want to form. Let's just drop this little guy in there. And let's help flip him over to the right side. There we go. Next, we will be adding in the ghost shrimp. They help by breaking down and even eating some of the unwanted waste, whether that be from algae, animals, or plants. Before filming, I already had all these little guys acclimated to the water temperature and conditions, and didn't just throw them in there straight out of the bag. Another important step you mustn't forget about. It is time to introduce these little guys to their new home. Here we have 3 adorable baby fire belly toads. These little fellows are still small, but you can see their color is coming out real nicely. I mean, get a look at those bright orange bellies. Hence the name, fire belly toad. Although technically they're more of a frog than an actual toad. At the time of making this video, there's been a sort of an import ban on fire belly toads into the country, so about the only way you can get these guys anymore is by getting them from a local breeder like I have. But I remember as a kid you could walk into any pet store and they would have them, which is why I'm glad I got a hold of these guys before they become even harder to find. Concludes our fire belly toad home build. If you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to like and subscribe for more animal related content and habitat making videos. This has been Reptile and More. Thanks for watching.